Okay, I'm gonna try my absolute hardest to do this video without sounding like I'm chewing out a bunch of marbles or whatever the heck the saying is. Welcome to the behind-the-scenes process of video making with Super McSchmoogermoons. Hooray! I'm trying to make this as interesting as possible. This is gonna be a lot of technical gibberish and jargon. Anyway, be excited. So first things first, when it comes to making videos on YouTube, you gotta get your ideas going. And for those who know, I have series and stuff, so I actually have like a template and a formula I follow. But first things first, when it comes to any video, is you're gonna script out your video entirely. It has in every word, as in like every breath, as in like comedy. Comedy is hard. As an example, here's Resident Evil 7 for beginners. Every joke is written out loud, except for like editing jokes, and even with editing jokes, I have like notes for myself. So yeah, I use my Mac for all my like writing and stuff. You guys get to see how clean it is, and so it's beautiful. But with the exception of a few videos, which you can totally tell when I'm not on script, most, if not all, my big videos are always scripted. And yeah, this is like what a standard script looks like for me. I use the notepad thing on Mac strictly because it just lets you do whatever the heck you want. I don't try to make it all fancy. It's just notes to myself. I mean, I'm the only person seeing this, so as long as I can understand what's happening, then like it's fine. And yeah, all this is written. So like when people say like, oh, YouTube doesn't look very hard and stuff, like here's Near for Beginners right here. All this. Ah, look at all that. Look at all these words. Look at all these McFeckin' words. Yeah, so the video we're going to be doing today is actually a little different from what I normally do. It's how to get into Kingdom Hearts for beginners. This video is actually incredibly short compared to what I'm used to, because this is a strictly educational video. And this is, you can still see this is a lot. And yeah, always write out everything you do, even jokes, pauses, anything, make notes. Your script is super important to, you know, figuring things out. You can always go back and fix things, obviously, but always have a final product ready to go. So when you have your script ready and you're happy with it and you're happy with all the words and stuff, then you gotta go record the darn thing. And I don't record at my desk. No. I record in my closet. Now, the reason why I record in my closet is pretty obvious. Sound padding. Simple as that. There's a lot of jackets in here. You know, I don't clean up stuff on the floor. But there's padding in a closet, and the echo, there is no echo. The key when it comes to doing a voiceover is where it's recorded, not so much the mic. Now, mics are obviously really important, but, you know, I've known some people who work with some really, really minimal stuff. And as long as you're recording in a good room, then it makes a massive difference in audio quality. So I always record in my closet. I have a little stool that I'm sitting on right now, and this is like a TV holder and stuff. Once you're in a position where you can record, I use all my Adobe programs for everything. In this case, for my audio recordings, I use Adobe Audition. I know some people who use things like Audacity, a few others and stuff. As long as you have a means to record it, you know, whatever. Audition's a good program, so yeah. For those who don't know, I use the Adobe Creative Cloud, which has all my programs on it. The catch is that it's $50 a month, so it's expensive, and you constantly have to sign in and stuff because I'm sharing it with Shib. So once you're in with your audio programs, for me, there's several ways you can record audio. There's no really right way to do it and stuff. Considering it's YouTube, it's going to get compressed anyway. It's not much of a problem. So I always end up creating a multi-track session. The reason why I have multi-track is because I can hear myself actually record it in case I need to. So with multi-track, you just want to hit the record, like this is the track I want to record on. My settings are always saved and stuff. And then I use this is initialize, and what this does is I can hear myself in real time talk. So that way, if my mic messes up, if I'm peaking, I'll hear it. I normally keep it pretty low in my ear so I don't mess myself up or psych myself out. Here's my recording mic and stuff. Originally I did record with the same mic that was in my room. I recently did upgrade to an Audio-Technica. It's crisper, but at the same time I've been using the same mic for 3 years, so I'm still getting used to the sound in this. Now if you notice, I'm not recording yet. I'm just still testing out stuff, so that's why I use this first, so I can actually hear how the audio sounds before I hit record. I do some vocal warm-ups, like to sit in solemn silence on a dull, dark dock in a pestilential prison with a lifelong lock, awaiting the sensations of a short, sharp shock from a cheap and chippy chopper on a big black block. That's a theater technique, if anyone's curious. Now, for some people, depending on their voice, how you record is pretty particular. For me, I always record with the mic on the side of my face, mainly because when you start doing those P's and punches and when a lot of air is coming out, You don't want the mic facing in front of you because it's gonna pop your mic and you're gonna hear it. So I always record on the side, that way any air doesn't go straight into the mic. So once you're all warmed up and you're happy with how the voice sounds and you're ready to go, and I'm like hoppity hoopity, yeah, whatever, then I hit record and I'm good to go, and I can see the audio waves, I can hear my own audio waves. There it is, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So once I know my mic's recording and it sounds all good, I just bring up my notepad and that's it. And I just read the script and I do my thing. Now, when it comes to reading scripts, the thing that you want is variety and consistency. You do not want to just read the whole paragraph in one take and that's it. You want to go sentence by sentence for the most part, and always try to change up the sentence how it's spoken every single time. Now, some people are much better at this than I am. I mess up on my own scripts all the time, but I try to do at least 3 takes of the same sentence with different variations, and that way it works together. The catch with the variations, though, is that they have to lead into other sentences properly. If you put emphasis on certain words and certain sentences and then don't do that with the other ones, or you're not having the sentences naturally flow into each other, people will notice that, and then they'll say like stuff is too forced or it's too stagnant, it's too broken up and stuff. So flow is a big thing. You have to really remember how you said the last sentence before you lead to the next sentence, because your goal with recording voiceovers is to make it sound like you're doing it all in one breath, all in one take. You don't want people to hear where those breaks are, and we'll get into the editing part of that soon, but how you record it is super helpful with just making your script flow. So always try 3 takes. Always make sure that you're remembering how you said the last sentence, and just give some variety. Voice acting is performance. So, for me, I normally do like a lot of crazy hand gestures, or I actually do like full body stuff, or anytime it sounds like I'm off camera or off, the microphone, it's because I hold the microphone away from me and stuff. It's a whole deal. But anyway, I'm gonna get this thing out of the way and then we'll jump into the editing process of it. All right, most of the audio is recorded. There was like a few paragraphs that I was, kind of have to finish later and stuff, but you kind of want to like save a little bit of room so you can always go back and fix stuff and re-record things. But there we go, there's some fresh audio right there. I like to do my recordings in parts strictly because if you're recording for 20 or 30 minutes or so, you want to export that ASAP in fear that something could go wrong, your program could crash, something could get corrupted. It's always good to do things in parts, because if you lose one, you don't lose the whole thing. So one part is half an hour, the other part is 16 minutes. I went a little long on the first part, but always remember to do that. That also applies to game recording in general. Never, ever, ever record like 3 hours worth of footage as just one file. You always want to break stuff up in parts in just in case you lose or corrupt something. But now you have the basis of your video, you got the audio, and this is where you go to edit. Alright, now welcome to the editing side of YouTube. This is where all the magic happens. This is where everything goes blah 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 blah. First tip for making any type of YouTube content, long, short, whatever, edit. Learn how to edit. Hands down, the most important thing you can do is edit. It makes a massive difference regardless of what you are doing. Now, editing wise, I use Adobe Premiere Pro. It is the industry standard. Most people will use this if they're doing like really advanced stuff. Most television shows, even movies, are made with Premiere Pro. There's different editing softwares. There's Sony Vegas, which is also incredibly popular amongst YouTubers. Sony Vegas is pretty versatile. I'm not gonna like crap on it and stuff. It can do some stuff. It's not really the editing software, it's just how you use the editing software. So don't think just because you're not using the latest and greatest you can't make good content. I've seen some people make some incredible stuff in Windows Movie Maker, even though I don't like recommend that. But Sony Vegas and Premiere Pro are like the go-to YouTube editing software. I know some other ones. I'll probably link down below if you want to know some other editing softwares that can help you create your lovely masterpiece. Okay, now I'm resetting the sequence to kind of show you like from the beginning what you're supposed to do. First things first in any project is to get your assets together. In this case, I always put my footage, my assets that I use in all my videos here. Voiceovers, music, are miscellaneous for pictures and titles and stuff. There you go. These are all the assets I use in most of the videos. I got my openings, my endings, all my stuff, my static, my sensor, all those things that I use in most of my videos. I always end up importing those. Footage-wise, I have a series of Kingdom Hearts clips that I've collected. Most of these are 20 minutes long of various Kingdom Hearts stuff, because this is a Kingdom Hearts video, so we're going to be talking about Kingdom Hearts stuff. In Premiere Pro, most of the time, how I end up setting up my project is whatever is the most common footage I'm using. In this case, most of my Kingdom Hearts footage was 720p, so what I like to do to just kind of set the sequence is you just put in a clip really quickly, and now the video is set to that. So in this case, if I check the properties of it, It's a 720p video. And if you're working with 1080p footage, it's never really a problem because you can just either downscale or upscale. It just, you know, all depends on what you're using. All right, so now the timeline's set, so I really don't need this anymore. First things first with any video, and for just whatever the heck you're doing, especially if you're doing edited content, like where it's scripted and you plan to have, you know, very specific things, always put in your voiceover first. It's super important to structure your video so you can kind of figure things out. The voiceover is the basis of the video. So just always do that. Always edit it, put it in, and work from there. So I bring those two files over, and there we are. There they are. They're the voiceovers we did earlier. It takes a little bit for Premiere Pro to recognize them and stuff. So normally how I cut my voiceovers is I listen to the whole thing on the preview, and then I take the pieces I like and I put them in the timeline. And the only pieces I like will go into the timeline. I know some people who put the entire thing in the timeline and then just cut from there. I don't like doing that considering I have so much extra fluff I don't end up using. Like, most of these things are me messing up lines or screwing up, you know, takes and stuff. So I normally just like doing it from here to minimize clutter. This is honestly the most tedious part of editing. I hate this with a passion because it takes a while, you have to hear yourself constantly, and it's just tedious. It's just the same stuff. Listen to it, like it, put it in. So I just found the opening of the video that I really like, and I just take it and then I pop it in the timeline. There it is. And that's the first thing you do. And you essentially just keep repeating that process until the entire script is done. Okay, so I have picked all the takes that I liked out of my voiceover. They are now on the timeline, and now you have a bunch of chunks stringed together. Now, what makes voiceovers flow is all in the details. So if your timeline looks like this, or you have bits and pieces of your voiceover, even if you didn't take out chunks and stuff like I did, and you just place the whole thing down there, the biggest thing you can do, and I see so many people make this mistake and they just don't take the time to do it. You'll make your script flow, you gotta get nitty-gritty in there. I'm gonna make this as big as possible too. If you see dead air, like right here, there's no wavelength right here whatsoever. You cut it, it's gone, okay? You have to listen to it. Sometimes some breaths in voiceovers sound natural, but if they don't sound natural, if it's killing the pacing of the video, especially in between takes or different, you know, parts and stuff, cut it. Always cut them. I spend a good amount of time going through my voiceovers just to cut out breaths, to cut for time. Do not let your voiceovers linger, because I can guarantee you, one of the things I had to learn over the course of YouTube was that you sound a lot faster to yourself than you actually are. So to you, it seems like you're blowing through your lines, but in reality, you're not talking that fast to other people. It's because you're used to hearing it. So you're gonna take some time to just go through and just cut out any type of dead air that could possibly ruin the flow of the video. So you see a breath right here, and then you cut it. And then you zoom in more, so you just dead air. There's nothing happening here, so you just cut it. You also have to be careful of not cutting off S's. It's very important that you actually listen to what you're cutting, because in this, this right here looks like dead air, but I'm actually saying like there's an S behind it, and you don't want to cut that off, because if you cut that off, it sounds like you're cutting off the sentence, and it doesn't sound good. In a situation like this, if you listen to it, there you go. There's your opening. All right, you happy? Let's move on. There you go. There's your opening. All right. In this case, there is dead air right here, but because it makes the video flow better, or it's comedic timing, you always want to make sure that that stuff is still there. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention while I was recording my voiceover is levels. Now, your ideal recording level for anything, regardless of what you're doing, your ideal level is always going to be about -12 to -6 dB. And if you've noticed here, I'm roughly around -12. And when it comes to recording in controlled environments like a recording booth or a room or a car, it is a lot better to record quieter than too loud, because if it's too loud, there's not a lot you can do to fix it if it's peaking all over the place or you're cracking and stuff. In controlled environments, try to record softer, because you can always adjust it later, because if you're in a controlled room, you're not going to be picking up nearly as much white noise, which means if you do crank up your audio, you won't be able to hear anything else in the background. A lot of times, if you're recording outside or other places it's better to record slightly higher because if your audio is too quiet and you have to boost it, then you're going to pick up all the background noise as well, and that's going to be amplified. So depending on your situation, you know, audio levels are obviously kind of complicated, but in controlled environments, try to record slightly softer, because I always end up boosting up my audio by a few points, which I'll do later once I get my audio good. Also, anytime you're editing, one big thing to note, anytime you're editing, always save. Save like your life depends on it. Make alternatives, make backups and stuff. Always save your projects, because Premiere Pro has a pretty good record of not corrupting save data, but it does crash an awful lot. So yeah, your project may not get lost, but you might lose 15 or 20 minutes depending on how you have your save increment set up, but I just auto-save all the time. Just impulsively just do it for no reason. And there you go. That is the first part of the video. I have to cut through the second part and stuff. This is just like the tedious part of editing, and you know, it's about 4 minutes of audio. This is actually a lot easier than say for beginners because I didn't do as nearly as many takes as I do, because this is a lot more straightforward. It's less comedic. Anytime I have a voiceover that involves performance or really specific timing, I do it a ton. It's a lot to get through, but for this is a pretty straightforward video. And like I said before, you normally want your audio to be about -9, -12, and just in general, I always like to boost my audio just a little bit. So I highlight the whole thing, audio gain, and give it about 2. And there you go. You'll hear the difference. Now, depending on type of audio that you're doing, you know, you can add effects. I normally do not put any type of effect on my voice whatsoever unless it's like something specific, like a meme or something. But if you want to adjust your voiceovers to give it a more of like vibrato or, you know, more bass or something, there's a ton of effects that you can use. Single band compressor is normally pretty good because it's got a lot of effects and stuff, so you just click and drag them over, hit edit, and then there's drop downs for it, voiceover, which, you know, will thicken the voiceover. So Kingdom Hearts came out in 2002 and everyone was like, nope, cut, nope, we ain't doing it like this, nope, not this time. This is a special episode. Alright, so that's what it sounds like with the compressor on, if I turn it off. So Kingdom Hearts came out in 2002 and everyone was like, nope, cut, nope, it's a subtle change, but for some people, depending on their voice, a more voiceover vibrato or a little more open can make a massive difference. For me, most people don't really care. I've never really done it, so I might start doing it just out of curiosity, see how people like it, but for now, it's just kind of like a no-no. I don't put any effects in my videos. Mine is adjusting the volume. Now, one thing to note is that people edit in different ways. I know some people who make the project as perfect as possible as they go along, like they don't move on from sections until that section is completely done. For me, however, I like to do it a certain way where I kind of, it's like building a skeleton or whatever, or like a, you know, a sandwich or whatnot. It's just layers and layers and layers, and you build on top of that. So first things first is voiceover is done, then you just place in footage. The footage is not edited that well, it's not scaled up, there's no effects on it, you just put the footage where the proper cuts are. This is also one of the more tedious parts of editing. So what I normally do is I'll just place in footage, you know, cut it here, blah, 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 make it go with the voiceover, make it flow, have the exact cuts I want in my actual video, except I won't adjust anything. I'll just place in the footage and then I'll scale it up. Once you have all your footage placed in, then I start adding things like effects and titles and transitions and just trimming it up and cleaning it up. And essentially once the voiceover and video are placed, and that's the fun part of editing. That's where you start putting all the detail and the spice and the pizzazz. But for now, this is the boring, tedious part of editing that I have to do every single time, and it is life draining. So this can normally take, depending on how difficult the cuts are, if I have rapid cuts or if I have really specific clips that I need to get in there or timing, then it can take a really long time. It can take days depending on what I'm putting in. So don't be mistaken, this is tedious, but it's also actual editing. Now, if you're curious why I'm leaving certain spaces blank right here or over here and stuff, it's because those are for assets I don't have right now, such as pictures or trailer footage, just things I will get later and add them in. That's more of like in the final touches thing. You kind of want to go through it first and then go through it again. It's a lot of just repeating yourself and listening to the same stuff. So one thing that I religiously do whenever I edit is, if you've noticed, I am cutting a lot on essentially the end of my sentence. However, a lot of times what I'll end up doing is cutting on consonants. Now, this can apply to a lot of editing in general. People like when videos cut to a beat, and just because you're talking doesn't mean there isn't a beat there. It's always a smart idea whenever you want to cut in mid-sentence is to cut on hard letters, such as, you know, C's, T's, very, very hard consonants. Like in this case right here, I say Die Hard right here, and you can actually see the spike of Die Hard, and normally what I would do is I would extend some footage here and then cut it right on the D, and then cut to another clip. But now the weird slurping noises from the Die Hard fans is filling up the gaming space once again, and I'm sure a bunch of people want to know what all the hubbub's about, and a bunch of people want to know what all the hubbub's about, It's also a smart idea to cut on ands as well, and also to try to have it to where the video matches where you're cutting specifically. Like, so if you're doing like a more of an emphasis on something, you want the character to be doing an emphasis or a movement or something that kind of goes with what you're saying. In this case, I want Sora. I want his arm to go with me saying and. And actually, that can go slightly faster. Now, I like doing the flow and stuff, so what I normally do if I want the clip to be sped up a little bit just so it matches what I'm saying, you boost it by 10%, 110% in this case. Most people cannot tell when a clip is being slowed down by 10% or sped up. So I use it a lot for extending footage and for it to match up better with things. And if this series is as good as people claim. Okay, now in this case, I was gonna have him kind of come up on and, but now I want the keyblade to end up saying claim. I see claim right here, but the footage is cutting right here, so I'm actually gonna slow it down a little bit now. We go back to my original speed. Let me just cut at a different point. People claim. Okay, move it a little bit more. Move this people claim. Right there. Claim. There we go. So you want kind of audio to match with your video all the time. Even if it's game footage, you can still work with that. And if this is about so now the audio, now the actual video works better. So watch this. And if this series is as good as people claim. But beautiful. And that's mostly how you edit. When it comes to flow and making sure that your script or your video has some punch to it, video matching your audio is crucial. Alright, so I kind of skipped ahead because a lot of this stuff was just really tedious, rinse and repeat, cutting the voiceover and putting in footage. But now you have the basis of your video. This is a bulk of the content that you're going to be showing, and now you got to do the fun details of editing. This includes things like putting in pictures and putting in titles and effects and sounds and all that kind of stuff. For me, this is the most fun part of editing any video. As you can see, I've kind of already started it a little bit over here with some pictures and some other things. I have my projects color coded a certain way, so anything that's like a still image is going to be red, so I just kind of know where things are. Voiceover is obviously green and footage is blue. So now the video is starting to come into full vision, and a lot of this is just going through it piece by piece and just fine-tuning every tiny detail that you can get. In this case, I need to start keyframing some basic movement for photos, so you know the video is going to play out like this. Now, for something like this, you could easily just leave this image still, but for me, I always try to put a little bit of, you know, movement or something to keep people entertained, because people really like movement regardless of what's happening. So in a situation like this, you keyframe every tiny detail. So anytime I have an image on screen longer than a few seconds, I do like to keyframe it a little bit to move it forward. So how I do that, I select the image, and then I go to the effects controls on Premiere, and I tell it, all right, here is where I want the image to be at this point, and this is the beginning of the clip, so I'm happy where it is right now, but I want to come a little bit forward. So I move the timeline over. to where this is the end of where I want it to be, and I'm gonna tell it, all right, at this point in the video, I want this image to be this size. So right now it's at 20, and I'm gonna bump it up to about 25. That's too big. So if I think it's too big, then I'll bump down to 23. There, and I'm happy with that. All right, and then I just move the keyframes over to at the beginning and end of the clip exactly where I want it, and you just go back and replay it and see if you like it.
Creating comedic for beginners videos for people who don't know shit about a specific game.
And then there's a little bit of some trailing left over, like, you know, it's not cutting exactly where I want to. In this case, I want to move the keyframe over just a little bit more, bring it in, and then bring it back over. And that's how I keyframe most of the images I use in my videos. And normally I like to have them kind of move in gradually. If you notice, I have a gradient background. The footage turns gradient, which is used right here. And I don't like that it just suddenly, the image shows up and the gradient's there. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll extend it just a little bit over, and then I will add a move-in effect right here. And I have this hotkey right now because it's the most common one I use, which is the push effect. And the push effect, I bring in just a little bit, and it's very fast. If you notice right here, it shifts it right over.
Is creating comedic for beginners.
And now it's a little smoother. So now it doesn't suddenly just go gradient. There's some movement that kind of justifies the gradient being there instead of just like popping. So it makes things look a little nicer. Now, when it comes to working with footage that's in different resolutions, in this case, a lot of my footage in here is either 720p or 1080p. The project itself is at 720p, which means any 1080p footage in this project will be upscaled, which means you have to bring it down. So I've done that with this clip right here. This is my dream drop distance footage. This was recorded at 1080p. If you've noticed, the scale is brought down to 67. You know why? Because when we're set to default, it's zoomed in like crazy, because this footage is higher resolution than the project right here. So anytime you have something like this, and this works both ways too, if you have a 720p clip and a 1080p timeline, you have to bring it back down. So I always adjust them accordingly, and yeah, so I bring it down to 67, and now it is fit for the project, and you can actually see the entire game. With clips like this, this is proper resolution footage. This is Kingdom Hearts 2 footage that's at 720p. The catch is that when these things record, there's a little black box around the footage. And this is really common with Elgato stuff where, you know, even if the game's at a proper resolution, it will record this little black border for whatever reason. And when you're editing a video, you don't want the ratio to kind of go in and out all the time. You want it to always fit your screen, and so the black border, you know, some footage doesn't. You don't want this footage to have no black border, and then suddenly this has a black border, because it's very disorienting for the viewer. So you always have to either upscale or downscale your stuff to where the image fits the screen entirely. So in this case, if you want to get rid of that black border, all you have to do is just bring it up about 5 points, and it's gone. Simple as that. So this is another situation where you're gonna have the gradient background, and I'm talking over something, and I will have a visual aid for it. In this case, I don't want to just say things, I want to show it. And I think that's probably one of the biggest rules I have with any of my videos, is it's tell and show. There's a lot of people who will tell, don't show, show, don't tell, and I do both. I tell and show. If you're saying that a character's doing something, or there's something that you're referring to, always show it, because it gets your point across considerably better than just showing kind of like random footage over the, like, whatever you're talking about. In this case, I'm saying specific words like remix and then days and stuff, so I obviously I don't have footage for those specific things, or I want a specific type of feel for it, so I end up creating those words in Premiere itself. So you can go here, create a new, and then there is a latency title, hit OK, and then you'll be able to create titles and whatnot. And this essentially will, you know, anywhere you move the timeline, you'll be able to see it, so you can kind of gauge what's in the background. So when it comes to certain comedic jokes, it's important to edit on the beat. And I said that before with some of the footage. You want some of the actions the characters are saying to match up with what emphasis you're putting on certain words. In this case, the joke here is that, you know, Sora understood the plot and cracked open his third eye.
Third eye, because their brains understood the plot. Because their brains understood the plot. So right here, when I say plot, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to zoom in on Sora's face. I'm going to give him some big eyes, some big flare eyes. And I'm gonna put a little bit of bass boost on there because the plot's the emphasis of the joke. I use zoom-ins a lot in a ton of my videos, and it's a pretty easy process to do, but it does, you know, require specific keyframing. A lot of keyframing is used for, like, you know, jump cuts and movement. So in this case, I want to zoom in on Sora's eyes. So the brains understood the pl. So you want to start on the beginning of the consonant, and then you're going to turn on your keyframe and be like, okay, right here, I want the you know, the scale to be right here, and then I'm going to move it a few frames. And when I say the other consonant, ot, you're going to move it in. So in this case, it's like, okay, now here, at this point on the timeline, I want it to zoom in really close on his face. And you just move around the positioning and the scale. All right, I'm happy with that, and it looks pretty good, but how does it play out?
Understood the plot.
So your zoom in should always go with what you're saying.
Understood the plot. The plot.
Okay, so I'm happy with how that looks right now, and now I got to put in the glare effects. Beautiful. Now you can kind of see Sora's eyes. Honestly, this is a very quick edit, so it's not really going to make much of a difference. Now for my bass boost, a lot of people are like curious where I get my bass boost. It's kind of stupid. I downloaded like a Vine bass boost meme, and it's just like this long collection of bass boosts, and I've just used that for a variety of stuff. It's really loud. And I always adjust it to make sure it's not too terribly loud. Let me grab that really quick. Alright, I bring it in, and there it is. There is my bass boost sound effect. You can tell it's really loud because the audio waveforms are clipping. So there's a ton of different sounds for this. I normally use the same one over here, though. It's a very normal bass boost. It's got the bwomp in the beginning, so I really like that. Obviously, you don't want to make it too loud to burst people's ear out. The thing about pre-bass boost audio is that it's already loud and like kind of vibrato, not so much like volume. So you want to bring it down.
Brains understood the plot.
There we go. Yeah, bring it out just a little bit more.
To open people's third eye because their brains understood the plot and everything else in between.
And for this, it's another zoom in. It's wit, so you wanna start on wit out and then zoom in on that, on the consonants. In this case, I wanna zoom in on Alice's face because she's got like one of those default faces that are kind of stupid looking.
Why and how without frying your brain? So
and she looks like a scared child, which is what everybody getting into Kingdom Hearts is gonna be feeling. And that's essentially what I'll do for the entire segments. I try to break up stuff into segments so I can pace myself. You know, right here, I would definitely put a static cut, and then I would just continue and rinse and repeat. A lot of editing is the same old kind of techniques and stuff. You gotta find a style, gotta find a rhythm, but a lot of it's just really specific keyframing, certain sound effects, and just knowing where to cut on when because of a certain emphasis and punctuation. But for the rest of this video, I'm just gonna be putting a lot of gradient backgrounds, putting in a bunch of images that I have here, a bunch of assets that I had to get together, a bunch of logos that I'm gonna have to show off. So a combination of pictures, text, and sound effects and keyframing, and there you go, you've got a video coming together. So there you have it. This is a final product video. Now, real talk, compared to other videos that I've done, this is a relatively simplistic video. You know, there's minimal Photoshop, there's only a handful of title cards and stuff, and the music was honestly pretty nice considering Kingdom Hearts has like really nice loop music. So all in all, if all my videos could be like this, I'd be able to pump out something like, you know, once every 5 days and stuff. And for the most part, my Do You Remembers are normally this complicated. For beginners, however, are like this times 4 or 5 because, you know, the video itself is normally twice as long. There's way more complications. Essentially, the opening of the video is this all the time. So for beginners are incredibly complicated. But a lot of times in editing, if you are stumped on an idea, it's always good to just kind of leave gaps and then come back to it later to see if you come up with ideas like this. This was the joke that I wasn't sure about, so I left it blank. But I knew what I wanted to put in there. You have to have an idea of what you want to put in. Now, if you want to see the final product of this video, it's already on my channel. I'm just going back and kind of showing you guys the process of like how I got here, what to do, and you know, just kind of wrapping everything up. The end credits are always kind of difficult because it's like a ton of layers of stuff because I have to put in like the separate thumbnails, and there's several ways you could do something like this, but for me, I just do everything in Premiere because it's normally easier that way. And if anyone's curious, the ending music to my videos, because like it's that happy little tune, yeah, that song is actually Happiness from World of Final Fantasy. One thing I do recommend though, if you are going to start doing YouTube videos, video game soundtracks are perfect for background music on anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It's because 90% of the time they don't get tagged by stuff. Now, for me, my For Beginners actually use music from a website called Incomplete Tech. I'll have a link to that down below. Incomplete Tech has a bunch of copyright-free music. Real talk, everybody uses that, and I kind of want to get away from it because everyone uses it, so there's a lot of like repetition in the soundtrack. Eventually, I'm going to start purchasing music, not video game soundtracks, but actually just purchasing music for the For Beginners because I want to have completely separate tracks that no one's ever heard before to actually make it not sound like it's some stupid Incomplete Tech, you know, stuff. Because like when everyone uses the same music, then everything starts to haze together. But just for the time being and whatnot for your videos, it'd be really smart to use video game soundtracks because not many people know what this tune is from. And it's from World of Final Fantasy because like no one really played that game. And if anyone's curious what kind of video downloader I use for all my clips, whether it be my own videos, some green screen effects on YouTube, music, I use 4K video downloader. It's really nice. It's free. I had to search around a lot for this, and it's pretty great. Most other video downloaders are like either through sites or kind of crappy or have a ton of malware. But so far this has worked out really, really well. I'll leave a link for that as well. But that's it. Now that the video looks really good, I can finally export it. And for exporting, one thing you never ever want to do is run anything else in the background except for the program. So in this case, when you're done with the video, you go to export media, and one thing you always want to do is just check your video over and over and over and over again. You gotta know that thing off the back of your hand and make sure there's no problems. So always watch before you export and then after you export, because sometimes things can mess up in exports. Not many people like know what format to do the YouTube videos on. Probably the easiest form on Premiere and other videos is H.264. It's a very weird standard thing, but don't export to AVI. You don't want your file to be massive. So H.264 is the standard YouTube format. And there you go. The video is now exporting, and you give it a few minutes, and then when your final product's done, you check it, and then you go upload it to YouTube. In this case, I've already uploaded the video to YouTube, and you can see kind of how I've structured things. For tags and whatnot, it's really important how you tag your stuff and also how you promote it, but tags really do help. One thing you should always note is tag abbreviations. So Kingdom Hearts is obvious, Kingdom Hearts 3 is obvious, but KH3, you know, YouTube's algorithm doesn't know what KH3 is actually standing for, because if you put Kingdom Hearts in your title, obviously a Kingdom Hearts video is going to show up somewhere. But a lot of times people will type in the abbreviation of the game, like, you know, Dark Souls would be DS or Final Fantasy would be FF. So you want to tag abbreviations because that's going to show up in searches because, you know, obviously, like in the title, there's no abbreviation. So in this case, yeah, I put a lot of abbreviations for things. You want to put reference to anything in your game. A lot of times if you want to help kind of get a video on the upswing, you want to tag it with something that might be searched soon. In this case, I'm not talking about Final Fantasy, but it's a Square Enix game. The Final Fantasy VII Remake might be getting some news later, so if people start searching the Final Fantasy VII Remake, this might show up in the recommendations. So you just don't know. So it's just best to cover your bases. Now, when it comes to tagging YouTube videos, it's best not to over tag. Really try to stay in the margin of what you're talking about, because if you over tag, then it never shows up for some reason, because YouTube doesn't like it when you over tag. So, you know, keep it to a minimal and try to keep it to what you're talking about, but always try to put in abbreviations, because it does help out a ton. Other than that, uploading YouTube video is not really that difficult. You know, I always put stuff in the descriptions, links and stuff you mentioned. And thumbnails I make in Photoshop. You know, they're not that complicated. Trust me, I'm not exactly a graphic artist, but that's it. That is it. That is how you become YouTube famous. Through a lot of hard work, effort.
So Kingdom Hearts came.
And try again. And you too can get screamed at by people in the comments about miscellaneous whatever. But I hope you guys learned something. Don't think that you're going to be a master at YouTube right away or making content. It's definitely a learning process. Lord knows I've learned a lot in the last 3 years of doing YouTube, and editing is crucial. Learn how to edit. There's a ton of free tutorials online. You can get access to a bunch of stuff, and a really good way to practice editing is by doing. Don't just kind of like make it up in your head. Practice techniques, practice timing, learn how to edit on the beat. And real talk, YouTube poops are like ideal for learning how to learn editing tricks. All right, so that's the best advice I can give. And learn to create your own style, find your own voice, and practice. It's all about practicing. You're not going to be famous in a day, so you know it takes dedication and time to learn to find your own voice. So thank you guys so much for supporting me, and I hope you get some fun out of this. And yeah, Godspeed, gamers, Godspeed.